Hi, my name is David Stinnett, and this is my final version of the Spots project. So Spots is a simple social image sharing page where users can update their profile, change their avatar, add new cards, like cards, and delete them. In this stage of the project, the main goal was to connect the front end to a real API so that all of those changes are saved to the server and persist when the page reloads. The first thing that I did was set up an API class to centralize all my server calls. It takes base URL and my auth headers in the constructor, and then I use methods like get app data, edit user info, add card, remove card, change like status, and update avatar. All of these methods run through a shared helper that checks the response. So if res.ok is true, it returns res.json, and if not, it rejects with an error. That way I only write that logic once, my code stays cleaner, and I can just handle errors in one place using catch and console.error. On the front end, I wire that into index.js, so when the page loads, I call api.getAppData, which returns both the user info and the cards. Once that resolves, I set the profile name, description, and avatar from the server response, and then render the cards list using a card template. From there, the UI is pretty straightforward. Editing the profile opens a modal, submits to edit user info, and on success updates the text on the page. Adding a new card opens another modal, submits to add card, and then prepends the new card to the list. Likes call change like status, and I toggle the active class based on the updated card from the server. One of the more interesting pieces was deleting cards. Instead of deleting instantly, I added a confirmation modal. When you click the trash icon, I store the selected card element and its ID and variables, open the confirm pop-up, and then on form submit, I call api.removeCard and pass in selected card ID as a parameter. If that request succeeds, I remove the specific card from the DOM and close the modal. And there's also a cancel button and a close X that just reset the selected card and close the pop-up without calling the API. Another big part of the project was handling UX properly on all forms. For each form, edit profile, new card, update avatar, delete. I validate the inputs using a shared validation.js module, disable the submit buttons when the form is invalid, and show a loading state by temporarily changing the button text to saving or deleting while the request is in progress. That makes the app feel a lot less janky and gives the user feedback that something is happening. So I did run into a few challenges along the way. The first big one was the delete confirmation modal. It's easy to just remove a card from the DOM, but once you introduce a separate pop-up plus an async API call, you actually have to track which card is selected. Solve that by storing the selected card element and selected card ID in module level variables and only acting on them inside the delete submit handler once the server confirms a deletion. The second challenge was the avatar behavior and the initial page load. So by default, the HTML had a static avatar image baked in, and when the page loaded, you briefly see that image before it got replaced by the real avatar from the server. So to fix that, I gave the avatar a hidden class by default in the HTML and only removed the class after get app data finished and the real avatar URL was applied. That gets rid of the flicker and makes it feel like it just loads correctly the first time. Styling the avatar button was also a bit fiddly. On desktop, the button needs to appear on hover over the avatar, sitting centered near the bottom of the image. On mobile, the button should always be visible. So I've solved that with a wrapper around the avatar, position relative on the wrapper, and absolutely position the button. And there's also different rules with media queries so that the buttons always are shown on smaller screens. So in the end, I now have a fully working Spots front end that's connected to a real backend API. User data and cards are loaded from the server. Profile edits, new posts, likes, deletions, and avatar changes all persist across page reloads, and the UI gives feedback while all of that is happening. A couple of the key lessons for me were centralizing API logic in a dedicated class makes everything easier to maintain and reason about. Small UX details like loading states and good validation go a long way towards making a project feel professional. And finally, even simple features like delete this card get more complex once you mix in confirmation modals and async requests. So planning the data flow matters. If I have more time, I'd like to add better error UI instead of just logging to the console. I'd like to show a skeleton loading state while cards and profile data are fetching, maybe add like counters and user-specific ownership visuals to make it feel more like a real social app. So I have been David Stinnett, and this is my Spots pitch. Thanks for watching.